Welcome to Over 40 Fabulous and Pregnant. I am your host, Jamie Massey, and you're listening to episode 70. If you're looking for pregnancy stories of women over 40, today we have a special one. Today on the show, we have our round table discussion on donor eggs. It's so good. If you are in the process of doing donor eggs or you're thinking about it, this is a great show for you. We have four guests on the show that have all been a part of the process. So our first guest is Jake. She is from episode 45. She had her first child at 51 using donor eggs. And her daughter is now 7. So we kind of get that perspective of having an older child with donor conceived eggs. Her donor is on the show also to share her perspective. Her donor is actually her niece. So she is on to really give that different perspective of an egg donor. Our second guest is Janice. You heard her show not too long ago on episode 68. She was pregnant with her donor conceived child at 46. She has 5 biological children that she had in her 20s. And so it's very different now that she is 46. She likes to talk about being pregnant 17 years later and how different it is. Her baby is 4 months old during the recording of this show. So we have that perspective of just recently having a child. Our third guest is Tara. Now, we haven't heard her story yet because this donor episode wasn't supposed to be out until after her show. So you hear a little bit of her story. She was pregnant at 44 with her second child. Now, she also had a biological child 4 years before her donor conceived child. So that also gives another perspective. Her son that was donor conceived is 2 years old. So we have a variety of different experiences. And then also we have me who is pregnant with donor eggs, which I just think is really cool. We have such a variety of women and, of course, all the stories are totally different. As I mentioned, this show is special number 70 with a round table. Now, what I'm kind of thinking is every 10 shows, it's going to be a special show. These shows actually take me a very long time to put together, edit, come up with questions. And so our next one planned for episode 80, I'm trying to schedule actually right now, is IVF over 40. So I want to give you some special shows, kind of mix it up a little bit. And let's see, what else do I need to tell you? Oh, also, with this show, I just think donor eggs and the whole process is just so unique. And, after we all talked about it on the show, I thought it would be such a good idea to make a guide. And so I have a free guide for you. You can go to the website or the show notes. It's all going to be there. And I have 10 questions to ask. And then I also kind of helped you kind of figure out how to answer the questions. We kind of go through questions from how many eggs to get, from where to find donors, from how to talk to your kids that are donor conceived. So 10 great questions. These are going to help you through the process and make it so much easier, because I had these questions myself, like, how many eggs am I supposed to get? I don't know. And, the clinic will kind of help you through this, but they are trying to make money also. And as another resource, there's also fertility coaches out there to help you through this process too. So, but the guide is really going to be helpful for you. So all the shows are going to be pushed down. I know when I do a recording, I always tell the women like when their show is going to come out, but those are all going to be bumped. For me, oh my gosh, I am 18 weeks. I can't believe it. Like, I am so close to halfway. I feel like I'm just really starting to settle in and be comfortable being pregnant. And I have a little baby bump going on that I just love. And I'm also starting to feel him. Like I started to feel him last week. I don't know if I told y'all about this, but I am just feeling him move. I usually have to be still. I have to be still to feel him. And I just love it. I do. We have a name picked out, but my husband thinks he doesn't want to tell anyone because he thinks we might change it. So we have a little letter board that we have hanging on the wall with his name on it, so we can kind of get used to seeing it, saying it ourselves. For other symptoms, what's going on? Oh my gosh, of course I have to go to the bathroom at least once a night. My hips hurt. I've been really trying to put off buying the pregnancy pillow. Those things are just so big. And then I go on Amazon to try and buy one. Like, I've tried to buy one at least 3 or 4 times, but there's so many options. I just get so overwhelmed and I just end up not buying anything. There's that. My clothes selection has been limited, but I'm so lucky. My sister gave me quite a few options for maternity clothes, which that has been kind of fun. And oh my gosh, they're so comfortable. But you know what? This is a long show. It's such a great show. We had so much fun. And really, I love these types of shows. We just have such a good time, just all chatting, and to be surrounded by 3 other women that have gone through the donor egg process. Oh my gosh, it made me feel so comfortable and amazing. I loved it. And really, this type of setting and conversation is what I really want to have in the 40/40 Society. So that's what I've been trying to curate. And it's just a lot of fun to talk to other women. And with that, let's get into today's show. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Today is our donor egg roundtable. We have 4 ladies on to share their experiences. And everybody is a returning guest. Everyone, thank you for coming on. It's interesting that I am pregnant with donor eggs.
Woohoo.
Janice just had a baby. So she had a baby with donor eggs. Jake, how old is Avalon?
Avalon just turned 7.
Wow.
Yes.
And how old is yours, Tara?
Jensen just turned 2 in December, and then my daughter Sailor turned 6 in November, and she was biological.
Yeah, it's so great to have all this different perspectives going on in our different stages. Before we get started, Janice, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm Janice. I'm 46. Actually, I just turned 47. I keep forgetting that. But I became pregnant when I was 46 last November, doing IVF with donor eggs.
Jake, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Jake, and I am 58 years old. I was pregnant at 51, and I used donor eggs from a donor who I knew and loved very well, my niece, Savanah.
Yes, Savanah, go ahead.
Yes, I am Savanah, and I am the niece of Jake Leisky, and I am her donor.
Amazing. Tara?
I'm Tara, and I am 46, almost 47, and I have two children, one biological that I had at 40, and my second child, Jensen, just turned 2 in December, and we use donor eggs for Jensen.
Love it.
Such good names, by the way. Remy, Jensen, love it.
Yeah, and Sailor's my daughter.
Oh, wonderful.
Let's get started. One of the first questions we had on Instagram was, how does it work and how does it compare to IVF? And it's interesting. I found this like, oh, she doesn't know, which I think is a good way to start off the show. With donor eggs, it is using IVF. Instead of us doing an egg retrieval, we found eggs from a donor, and then they started the IVF process. Do y'all have anything to add about that?
No, how does it work? It works that you don't use your eggs. You retrieve eggs from some beautiful soul somewhere. You combine that with sperm and create an embryo. And then the actual process of transferring that is the IVF. So the difference is that.
So we all used our husband's sperm or partner sperm.
Correct.
The only donor is the eggs in this situation. Let's see. Our first question is, what led you to using donor eggs? For us, we had an egg retrieval and we only got one egg. And I was like, I'm not doing that again for even 3 or 4 eggs. So for us, it was kind of an easy decision. Tara, what about you?
Yeah, sure. My story's a little bit longer than that. But I'll give you the elevator pitch version. So I met my husband at 38. We knew kind of right away that we wanted to try and have kids. So we kind of just said, hey, let's throw caution to the wind and start trying. Unfortunately, we had a miscarriage about I think a year before Sailor was born. Chromosomal abnormalities. We were able to test the cells in the fetus, which was awful but good at the same time, knowing that it wasn't something that was wrong with either of us. It was just a normal miscarriage. As you all know, the older you get, the more miscarriages you have, the more abnormal eggs. So it kind of, all goes downhill after 35 is basically what the charts all say. So then I had frozen my eggs at 36 by myself as a single person. I had done 2 rounds of IVF at 36. So now this is 10 years ago. The egg freezing process was well into, the technology was great, but it wasn't as good as it is now. And I only got 6 eggs total from 2 rounds of IVF on my own. So it kind of goes back to your point, I did this for 3 eggs, right? But it was kind of an insurance policy for me, I thought at the time. We tried to use those 6 eggs with my husband's sperm. I think half of them fertilized and none made it to blastocyst stage. So of course we were devastated. I thought I was never going to have kids. The world was over. At this point, I'm only 39 years old. So we decided to move forward with a round of IVF together. But I knew, I was probably going to have the same outcome, 3 eggs or less potentially at this point. And I never got my cycle and I was pregnant with Sailor. So, I don't know what to chalk it up to. Good luck, miracle. I was on a lot of supplements because of, getting ready for preparing to do IVF with my husband. So who knows what it was, but we had a great pregnancy. Sailor was born in 2017 and she's now 6. And then we were like, okay, we're done. We don't need another child. And she was such an amazing child. And, I'm older, my husband's younger than me, but we were like, it would be great to give her a sibling. This would kind of complete our family. COVID happened. We finally did do that last round of IVF together and we got 1 embryo. We got 3 eggs. That seems to be my number. 1 embryo and 3 abnormalities when we got it tested. So my doctor was like, you're done. Like, I'm not letting you do this again. You're going to have the same outcome. And she brought up donor eggs and I had no idea what that was all about. Didn't know anything about it. So we sat on it for a year and then finally decided to move forward with it. Yeah, it was a crazy process during COVID, but it's been amazing. And I think making the decision has totally changed our life completed our family. I've become so much more involved in the community. I'm a big advocate for, everything donor related. So it's been a really great experience for us.
That's awesome. Jake, what about you?
So what led me to using donor eggs? I was old and I knew what kind of, I mean, when I was pregnant when I was 51. So we made a choice, right, going into the situation. And, my story has been on your podcast. So we know that I met Chris 38 years ago and we got back together. If it would have been a good idea to have kids when we met, but we didn't. So, going into the situation, getting back together 38 years later, being the age that I was, we had a discussion and made a decision right out of the gate that we wanted a family, and to even go searching to see if there were any rogue eggs floating around in my body was one thing. But, if we found them, what would our experience be? What would the pregnancy experience be? What would the family raising experience be? And we made a decision in that moment that we were going to go with donor eggs. We didn't know at that moment it was going to be a family member, but we decided to go down that path. And
Yeah.
that's a funny story in and of itself.
And Janice, what about you?
I have 5 children that I had naturally in my 20s. So I have 5 biological children. And then in my 40s, deciding to have a baby with a new partner. So we tried to conceive naturally and with IUI for 4 years. After going through that, I was at age 45 by that time. And the clinic that we use, that we feel very comfortable with, and we found after another clinic that we didn't like, they don't allow you to do your own eggs at age 45 unless you have a really good AMH. And even though I'm not all about those numbers, I had literally we had been trying for 4 years. And at that point, when we got the no-go on that, we were looking at having to travel and go through another clinic out of state and kind of piece together all of our care. And we just felt like, we want to get started on this. We felt really called from our spirit baby out there. And we felt like, it doesn't really matter how this happens, it was almost kind of exciting once we started learning about it. And, I have 5 kids biologically. So we were just like, yeah, let's do it. Exciting adventure. Let's do it.
Love it. And our next question is, how long was your journey to decide using donor eggs? And how did you decide? Was it easy or hard? Jake, what about you?
It was right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
The moment we started with the fertility process, that was our decision went along with, yes, let's have a baby. So we didn't take time trying. We didn't take time thinking about it. It was like, this is the direction we want to go. And we found our facility in New York and started watching videos, trying to clone me, typing in all let's see, my height, my weight, my background, my ethnic background, my likes, my dislikes. And so it was like, boom.
Mm-hmm. Tara, what about you?
So it took us about a year. We were presented with that option and we were like, what is this? So we took our time researching it. Also, COVID started in the 6 months after we kind of were given that option. And we were sitting at a table at brunch one day outside in a little tent. We didn't want to be around people with Sailor. And we were just having a great brunch. And my husband looks at me, he's like, why are we waiting? Like, what, why? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it came out of nowhere. We weren't talking about it. It was just, and I was like, oh, you mean like going forward with the donor stuff? And he's like, yeah. I was like, well, it's pretty expensive. That was one of our big problems. And then I think we were just scared. And I think we didn't think we were on the same page with each other, but in reality we were. So I will say, and they make you go through like a 2-hour therapy session to, before you can move forward with the process. And that was honestly like it was the best thing we could have done. So, Mitch was concerned, we're a little bit of a different story where we have a biological child. At the time she was 3 or 4. How's it going to affect her? How do we talk to her about it? It was just more of like, nervousness around that. He thought I would look at Jensen and not think he was mine, or like that he wouldn't look like me. You just don't know, right? Like you have all these unknowns until it's done. And then you're like, oh, this is totally fine. But you don't know when you're thinking about it. And we were just worried about the complications of, having one biological and one that was half biological. So the therapist got through to both of us. We really were on the same page. We just weren't saying it to each other. So that kind of made our decision to move forward.
Janice, what about you? How long was your journey to decide donor eggs, and how easy or hard was it?
So I think it was around 2021, after we had been trying for over 2 years. I remember we were at my partner's family's house. His father passed away in April of 2021. So we went there to help deal with all the cleaning up of the property and selling the house and everything. And we were actively trying. And I didn't even really remember this until Tara started telling her story. But I remember us having the conversation that, if we keep trying and it doesn't work, like me being the one bringing it up, what do you think about donor eggs? I feel like I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I'm ready to do this. And so we ended up, trying for another year, almost year. And then, yeah, when it came that time, we just knew that we wanted to do it. I was excited about it, just ready to have my baby.
For us, we had a conversation with our doctor after our egg retrieval, and she's the one that suggested going to donor eggs. And I first cried about it, but then after giving it so much thought, it really gave me hope. I was like, this is how we're going to get pregnant. And it kind of switched like a light bulb for me that I'm okay with this. One of the next questions is from Instagram. And she said donor eggs versus embryo eggs. And for us, it was really about at least being able to use my husband's sperms. I have always been drawn to embryo adoption, but it was important for my husband that we use his sperm. So that's how we decided on that. Did anybody else consider embryo adoption?
No.
I did. Yeah, we were thinking about that too. And I was actually getting kind of excited about that. I thought that would be a really cool thing. But my partner was definitely wanting to go the other route. So that's what we did.
Tara, did you consider it?
No, because I think we knew that, it didn't even come up actually. I don't think I really knew much about embryo adoption until after and started doing more research about it, because I think we heard more about it after we had our frozen embryos and they're still sitting on ice and we don't really know what we're going to do with them. So I think that's when I learned more about how that works. I don't really think I knew much about it during the process at all. So no, it never really came up as an option.
Mm-hmm. Jake, I saw you shaking your head. Was it ever a consideration?
No, it was never consideration. I was shaking my head when she said they've still got an embryos on ice, because we're in that same position with that one embryo chilling in New York City, just hanging out.
I'm like, I'll just keep paying it until, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I just can't. We're done, but I just don't know what we're going to do. So I'd rather just pay the money until we really make a decision. There's too many things going on right now. I can't focus on it.
I'm just going to keep paying that fee until Savanah decides whether she may be in a position where she can let's keep getting weirder with our family, and you give birth to the second embryo that is actually biologically yours.
Oh, that would be interesting. I would love that.
Interesting. I don't know if that's ever been done. That would be fascinating.
That
You'd
would
be like a case study.
That would be an episode for sure.
Our next question is from Instagram, and it says, do you miss thinking you got X from me? And I think she's talking about the genetics, not having genetics of your own child. And Jake, you have genetics from your own child, just a little distant.
Well, and that was was the factor for me, because at first I was okay with an egg donor. And then for some reason, I just didn't feel connected to what we found in the videos. I was like, nope. And at one point my husband said, look, dude, you got to loosen your grip a little bit, or, and once this baby is here, it's going to be ours. I got locked into this doesn't feel right. And then we started, I started thinking about what it would feel like to have some kind of a genetic DNA tie to it. And then that's when I got really invested in that idea. And, and that's when we reached out to Savanah. But there was a lot of conversation before reaching out to Savanah. So I didn't, I at first didn't realize that there was a way that I could have a genetic, DNA tie. And then once I did realize that, I was in love with that idea.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I speak for all of us that, of course, we had to mourn the loss of having our own kids with genetics. But do you feel that way, Tara?
I think it's different for me because I did have Sailor first, right? But it's, it doesn't come up that often in my brain. I think I more just, I don't mourn it, but I worry about the future. I worry about what's he going to say when he's 12 and he really understands, and he knows the story. I mean, we read books to him. We tell him all the time. There's an embryo painted on the wall in his bedroom. He knows, I mean, for what a 2-year-old can understand. Right. But yeah, I'm more looking, and it's already complicated. There's already 2 other children out there who have his half, the donor's DNA. The donor the donor can be used, I think she can donate 4 times at the clinic that we went to. So, and there'll be more, right? Potentially. There's probably a few more out there that we don't know about, but that's already a little bit complicated, which is why we haven't made a decision about what we're going to do with our embryos, because then it's half of my husband running around out there, which I don't know if we really want that. And then, half of this donor, and then they're still genetically connected to my side. I worry about those kind of complications. I didn't have as much of mourning process because we did have Sailor first. So I don't think I went through that as much. It was more just I'm an anxious person anyways. You can ask anybody. So I worry about the future stuff, not as much as the past.
Yeah. Janice, what about you with having 5 children first?
Yeah, I really accepted the adventure of the journey. I was really into learning all about it. And like I said, I was fascinated with epigenetics, just fascinated. And there's been a lot of new research. It's really not just, it's really they're actually calling you as the donor egg recipient, you are the bio mom because you carry the baby and you give birth. You're just not the genetic mom.
Mm-hmm.
And your genes tell the DNA what to do. Your RNA is letting their all of the stuff that they receive in utero, that's coming. You're initiating that. Your genes are making that happen, turning on certain genes, turning off certain genes. So I'm just totally fascinated with that. I really think, it's 3 people creating the child and not just 2. You're not just a carrier. I really don't believe that. Yes, I did. I did at first. I was very accepting of the journey, excited about it, but I definitely did. And that started probably in pregnancy. I was really gung-ho and knew that I wanted to do it, excited about it, but definitely shed some tears, and my husband and I would have conversations and I'd be like, but you don't have to worry about this. You don't have to experience this. You're going to look at our baby and know that he comes from you. And I was very worried about that. At probably the first half of pregnancy, I was kind of anxious about is this okay? Is this okay that we did this? How is this really going to be? Just anxious and a little worried, and definitely mourned the loss. But it went away. I feel like it kind of went away pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty quickly as I got farther along. Yeah, and definitely birth. But I guess that's a different question.
Yes. When I was with the midwife, she asked me, she said, how old was the genetic mom whenever she gave eggs? And I don't know about y'all, but that got to me because I'm like, she's a donor. She's not the mother.
Yeah.
I had to correct her.
Yeah, that's a weird comment. I would have been upset about that too.
Yeah. And I think she said it because she probably hasn't been around donor conceived babies. So I was like, I'm trying to give you grace, but I think next time I'm going in on Friday, I think I'm going to correct her and be like, listen, she does not need to be called that.
My mother called our donor that when I was very early postpartum, but she didn't mean it in any way.
Yeah.
but she did say it, and I was very emotional, and I had to let her know how it made me feel. And I'm so sorry. Like, I will
Yeah.
really do that. I didn't mean it like that. Of course, you're his mom.
Yeah.
Well, and it's simple. You don't know what you don't know. And I even had issues, like trouble with the language at first. But back to Tara, what you were saying about the all of the therapy and the sessions that you had, we had a great support as far as that's concerned, and really identifying what the language is. And then because our family is so close, we also had that conversation with them. And my family is also, we're incredibly close, but incredibly twisted as well with our sense of humor. So we got all the jokes about what we're calling Kim, my brother, Savanah's father. It was like, is he going to be uncle or grandpa or grunkle? Or, we got all of that out of the way in the beginning. Tell all your jokes, make all your cracks, and then we'll get down to what is happening here. But we had the ability to go in and really talk about what this was going to look like, and but yeah, I can see how that could be hurtful.
But what a great idea to kind of establish all that in the beginning too.
Yeah.
The next question is, describe what it was like to select a donor and what was important to you. Jake, I know you said it on the show a little bit about calling your brother and stuff, but can you tell us a little bit more about how you came about selecting Savanah, your niece, as your donor?
So I think it started with the fact that I was not settling on any of the donors that we found. And that, once I think I have a little bit of a competitive nature. And so once I realized that, that it was going to be someone else, and once I realized that I could carry, it was like I wanted more. I wanted some kind of a DNA connection. And then when I suggested Savanah, my husband was very uncomfortable. Like the initial part of that, he said, "What's going to happen at Christmas? Is this going to be like when we see her? Is she going to want to discipline the child? He didn't know Savanah very well at that point." So he's like, "Is she going to assume the role of it? What is it going to do to our relationships with your family, because you are very close to your family? Is this going to possibly create ill feelings and jealousies and weirdness?" And he didn't want any of that. So I said, well, there's only one way to find out. And that is to, first of all, I wanted to know from my brother and my sister-in-law, who are my best friends and closest people to me in the world, how they felt about it before we even spoke to Savanah. And so we called them and had a conversation, and they were like, "This is amazing. This would be such an amazing experience." So they gave us the full thumbs up, and then I don't think the phone was completely disconnected before we hung up and called Savanah.
I love that so much. So cute. Janice, what about you?
So at first, it was a little strange, the whole process of choosing a donor, going through the databases and everything, but we got right into it. And at first we were really looking for, really my partner was like, you do it. This is you. You can pick and then we'll have a conversation, but really this is all you. So I would share everything with him, but I was definitely the one totally into it and had the different sites, looking at everything. And we were just I was looking for someone that looked like me. And that's what we did. And we had a couple people that just didn't work out. And one that we were super excited about, that she looked so much like me. And we would put, pictures of us together, and we're like, this is like me and you, and she didn't work out. And I will say that her responses were very short on the questionnaires, and they were all like, when you're reading all about why they do it. And, obviously a lot of young people do it for money, and that's totally fine. But this young woman was so thoughtful. I mean, she was just writing, and I felt like if I was doing this, these are the kind of things I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like she was just very thoughtful. And so we ended up going on that. We ended up going on more of the personality
Mm-hmm.
than the looks. And we used frozen eggs. So we started with, trying to find a donor and have them retrieve and having them travel and all of that, but we ended up using frozen eggs from our agency's bank because they would have different ones that came in every so often. And after a couple of donors not working out, and we had been looking for about 4 months, and I asked the coordinator, the IVF coordinator of our clinic, do you have any, available, any new ones that have come in? And she gave me 2 different donor profiles. And the second one I looked at, and I know I talked about this in the show, but I was like, I read through it, and that was her. Really thoughtful responses. We didn't get a lot of pictures. We just got one picture of her, and it was actually a black and white photo. But then I requested from the agency if they had any more photos, and they had one of her and her mom when she was little. And I was just like, this is it. I mean, I was like, this is it. Like, this is how our baby's going to come. And I showed it, to my partner, and he is like, yeah, let's go for it. So we secured the 6 frozen eggs.
Tara, you kind of mentioned your story earlier. Do you have anything to add?
It took me a month or 2 to pick a donor. We used their database. We didn't go outside of CCRM because they have an extremely thorough process. They said 75% of the people don't even make it through the psychological process there because it is such a big, it's a big decision. And we wanted to make sure that we had the right person. So I took my time looking for someone, and then I presented them to Mitch and my husband. And, I was like, here's the top 3. What do you think? And so we picked one finally. But she hadn't retrieved her eggs yet. She ended up getting COVID literally the day before. She could not retrieve her eggs. So we had to pick another donor. We weren't going to be the test case. No, this hadn't happened at the facility before. So while it took me a month and a half or 2 months to pick the first donor, it took me 24 hours to pick the second one. There were a lot of new women in the database. And at that point, we had been waiting like 3 or 4 months for her retrieval. And honestly, it all worked out. Jensen's amazing. The donor was great. I mean, we never met her, but it's open ID, so we can meet her when he's 18 if we'd like. But yeah, it took us. So I would say the whole process from start to end was probably like 6 to 9 months between saying yes and then like picking the donor and going through the process. But I think if it wasn't COVID, it probably would have been a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm. Was it stressful or easy for you?
It was pretty stressful just picking someone and then waiting for them and, just waiting for it. But once we picked the second donor, which is who we ended up using, it was pretty smooth sailing. I mean, I think that happened in January or February, and I had my transfer in April. So it was pretty fast. I mean, luckily, my body had already been checked 900 million times, and I had, 7,000 vials of blood taken from me. So, and I had been pregnant before successfully and had a live birth. So we knew that I was like ready to go. But, we just wanted to make sure we got embryos and all that. So it was more like, how many eggs do we buy? Are they all going to fertilize? That kind of stuff that, that all takes like a couple months to have everything tested and all that. So, but yeah, no, it wasn't, it was more just like the waiting was stressful after.
Yes.
After we moved forward, but no, it all worked out good though.
I think
7,000 vials is a lot of blood.
I'm being dramatic, clearly being dramatic, but it feels like that after 7 years of fertility treatments.
You're right.
I was like, I don't have any veins left. They don't work anymore. So.
And I think that's the whole IVF process is just waiting and waiting 100%. And waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I will add though that we ended up using frozen eggs as well with the second donor that we picked. She had already retrieved and the eggs were frozen. I will say one of the things I was definitely pretty set on, I wanted someone to look like me. And we did. I mean, Jensen actually looks more like me than my husband. Has dark hair, darker skin and a beard, dark. He's just dark. And it's hilarious that he came out looking more than me than like anyone else. So epigenetics are real, I think. It was kind of the same thing. I kind of was sorted through everyone first and then presented them to my husband. But I think the other thing that I was really looking for was no issues like in the family as far as like health issues. And that was an interesting thing because the way CCRM has their database set up, you can sort for different things, but you basically have to read through the 30-page PDF file of, all the things, how they answer the questions, all that. But I really did love how she answered the questions, but also, I mean, there was literally nothing, no cancer, no mental health issues, zero problems. And I was like, okay, well, even because they even ask about the family, like the brothers, sisters, parents, it goes into all of that. I think one thing was like some sort of thing going on with the mom's eyes when she got older, but literally there was nothing. And that was something that just if we could avoid repeating history with health, health issues that show up later in life, that was something that my dad has Parkinson's. So it was kind of more top of mind for me as well. So, but other than that, yeah, it was kind of a similar process as everyone else.
Yeah. For us, I offered my little sister. She was 39 at the time. And the doctor, like in that call with the doctor, I said, well, what about my sister? And she said, well, how old is she? And I said, 39. And she goes, absolutely not. And so we looked for donors, and I started to look at exactly myself, exactly trying to replicate who I am. And we didn't find anyone. We did find 2 people because they had like 2 eggs and 3 eggs, or they equaled 6. So there's 4 and 2. One was like a basketball player and she was blonde. And I was like, that's me. And I don't remember what the other one looked just like my sister when she was little. And so I went back to my doctor and she goes, oh, no, you can't have 2 different donors. You have to have one donor, at least 6 eggs. I was like, oh my gosh. And so me and my husband are typically like, don't agree on anything. Like when it comes to like the little things, we can't agree on anything. But we sat down in front of our TV. We put it on the big screen TV, and it took us like 10 minutes to find a donor. Just with all of our options, we were like, bam, bam, yes, no, this is her. We were deciding her. I think we put a deposit down on her, or something. And like a few days later, I found out I was pregnant. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a miracle. We don't need a donor anymore. And I'm like, we don't need a donor anymore. It was an amazing email, really powerful. And I ended up having a miscarriage. So then we had to go back to the drawing board and find a donor. And so that donor wasn't available anymore. And so she said, here are the new donors coming on board. And here is this beautiful woman with a gorgeous smile, like holding this little kitten. And I was like, she's it. It seemed perfect. And that's how we decided ours. Our next question, is for Savanah. Savanah, we haven't heard from you yet. What was it like deciding to become a donor for your aunt?
I mean, the decision for me was pretty easy. Like my aunt said earlier, our family is so connected through such amazing bonds of love and friendship. And honestly, I remember her calling and she kind of was like, I have something really crazy to ask you. And I was like, this isn't very crazy. Absolutely, 100%. It took me, honestly, I think all of 2 seconds to be like, what do I need to do? Where do I need to go? How do we do this? Like 100% to be able to give that to her and Christopher is one of the best things I think I've ever done in my life. So it was awesome. A simple decision for me. And I hope for everyone else out there, it can be a simple decision for them too.
I have a question for Savanah.
Of course.
How old were you when you got the call from your aunt? I'm just curious, and now that it's 7 years later?
Yeah.
How has your mindset and thought process changed? I'm just so fascinated that, as a young person, you were able to say yes so quickly. Sorry to interrupt you. I just was like,
oh no, that's okay. How old was I? I'm so bad at timelines.
25.
So I was 25. Is that 10 years ago? Oh my goodness. Okay. So I was 25. I just think that at that point in my life, I wasn't thinking about kids. I personally still am not really thinking about kids. I think it was just I was just fit the part really, really well. I was very independent, living my own little free life. And it was just such a simple thing for me personally to be able to give to them. And still to this day, I mean, I wouldn't take it back for the world.
Mm-hmm.
She's just such a blessing in our lives. So
did you have to, I know that this is a podcast and so it's kind of unfair to draw a picture in, but when you see the 2 of them.
Oh, yes.
It's a little nutty.
That's cute. Both little buttons going on.
No one posed them for the picture. They do the same thing. They run the same way.
Our mannerisms are freaky.
And we all just kind of look at each other. The whole family is like, wow. This is crazy, amazing.
Yeah. Decision was super easy on my part. I mean, there's not really much else to say. It was just,
Yeah. So did you have any fears after you kind of thought about it?
nope.
Wow.
Nope. I think that honestly, I must be like an anomaly or the exception to the rule. I have no idea. It was a pretty fearless process for me. It was just more about creating this life for my aunt and my uncle. And it's, yeah, pretty awesome.
She moved from Vancouver, Canada to Atlanta, and she lived with us for 3 months.
Yeah, I think it was closer to it was on and off through New York and Atlanta.
Yeah, that's right.
I think closer to like 6 to 8, back and forth before I actually left after the egg retrieval.
Yeah.
That
was really fun.
He was super fun. Again, no complaints.
And our agency was in our clinic was in New York, so a lot of things ended up really at wonderful times, like Fashion Week, and so we definitely connected our fertility treatments with catching a few fashion shows and stuff. So that was also amazing. But it was an incredible. I mean, I've loved this child since the minute she was born. So, and she used to come with me on the road and to when our band would play and stuff. And just I always used to tell her the reason I didn't have kids is because I knew that I couldn't love them as much as I loved her. So I've had to kind of rejig my narrative when Avalon's around.
Risky business.
Yeah, I'm sure y'all got to bond so much more, even just being together for so long like that.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
One of my favorite times.
Tara, I think we'll start with you for the next question. How did you share with family and friends during pregnancy and after giving birth? Because I probably struggle and I'm so awkward. I'm like, we're pregnant and donor eggs.
It's like word vomit, right? That's what I call that. You're like, oh, yeah.
So tell me how to do it better.
I think Mitch and I decided very early on, we're going to be 100% open about this. And that is not for everyone. I totally understand if you like to keep it private as far as just between a small group of people. But I do truly 100% believe you have to be honest with your child. Like, there's no reason to hide this from your child, and they need to know that they're donor conceived, right? So that was kind of our thought process. I did a lot of reading up on things, a couple different books I read. The one by Wendy Kramer, I think I sent you her podcast, Jamie, after we chatted. She wrote a book about being a single mom by choice, and just, she has a registry now that's how we found the other donor siblings. We put Jensen in the registry anonymously, obviously. And that's how we connected with other siblings or other people that have used our donor. But at the end of the day, I think it's a lot of education. Still to this day, I mean, probably at least once a month, I'm explaining what IVF and donor is, which is kind of funny because I would have thought by now, and I'm happy to explain it. I'm an open book, but I would have thought by now people would be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that, or I know what IVF is. They don't, especially men. I work in finance, so like I come across some very interesting characters that are just very one channel focused, right? Of, this is my job, this is what I do. I had kids a long time ago. Like, I don't know anything about that. So I feel like I do a lot of educating, but no, my family was great. Like, I'm very close with my family. I'm very close with my husband's family. And they did have some questions for sure. Like, can they take your baby? Not like, can they take your baby, but like, how do you, just how does this all work behind the scenes, right? Like, well, is your child going to meet this person someday? Like that kind of stuff, like the complications, I think that they were thinking about like down the road. But yeah, I mean, everyone was very open to it. I think the only person that I don't think knows is my grandmother, but she's 93. And I just can't think about like sitting down and explaining IVF to her and egg freezing and donor. And I mean, she can't even get my daughter's name right half the time. She calls her Taylor instead of Sailor. So, I mean, maybe someday I'll sit down and explain to her, but I don't live anywhere near her. So, but other than that, like everybody knows, and everyone was really like welcoming, open to it. I think I was a little nervous about being pregnant, like older, and I now I think it's hilarious because I have so many friends that were so much older than me when I was pregnant with my kids. So I don't know why that was a concern. I was more just like, what are people going to think? And now I just don't care what anybody thinks anymore. I just am way past that. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty easy for us, but I know a lot of people, it's extremely difficult to have those conversations. Their family's not supportive, or they just are nervous to tell them and they don't. I think it's just all over the place, right? Like it's really hard, and I just try and have an open mind and be supportive and help, and help anyone that needs to. I'm always happy to explain things to people, right? So.
Mhm. Janice, what about you? How did you share with family and friends during pregnancy and giving birth?
Our closest family members know, but we have not shared with extended family and friends, only our close circle of friends and family know. And that'll probably change as time goes on, but we just didn't feel the need to just tell everybody all at once. Even with our family, it just kind of came in trickles. And I was actually super nervous about it, feeling like I would be judged, mainly because I already have so many children, and feeling like, well, geez, why do you want to, like, why? Just the big, like, why? And me feeling
Mhm.
like I don't really want to explain myself. I don't have to. So
Mhm.
we don't have to, those that are really close to us, that it's exciting to talk about. Everybody's really inquisitive. Ironically enough, I was really nervous to tell my mom and my children, my 5 older children, and it was just like smooth sailing. It was like they didn't miss a beat. My kids were so funny. They were like, "Well, isn't that what IVF is?" That's what they said. They're like, isn't that what they was like, well, yeah, isn't that what IVF is? And so I'm like, no, not exactly. And so some of them are really interested in learning the whole process and how it exactly works scientifically. But most of them were just like, yeah, cool, mom. Cool. And I went into this like, whole thing explaining because we did a Zoom call because 3 of them live out of state, or not a Zoom call, but just a phone call with everybody on there. And my 3rd born child wasn't able to be on the call. So I'm calling him like separately. And it's like this big thing for me, that I'm nervous about, that I'm trying to talk to him about. And he's like, yeah, mom. I was like, so do you get it? Like, what do you think about it? And he's like, yeah, I think that's great. Like, I thought that's what IVF was. He's like, yeah. So they were all just didn't skip a beat. I mean, they were not, any kinds of like worried or like, well, why did you do that? Why did you feel the need to do that? Did you not feel complete with all of us? You have all of us. Like, there was never any kind of weirdness like that, just totally accepting. Then really nervous to tell my mom. I actually did not tell my mom until, I'll say, probably like a month before he was born. And that was a really big deal for me. And she was the same way. She was like, okay, like, what's the big deal? Like, so that was really cool. We've definitely talked to him about it already, even though he's only 5 months old. I told him his whole conception story in utero.
Mhm.
And I've told it to him once since he's been born. And we plan to get some books. We have them kind of picked out, but we haven't ordered them yet. So I would love to hear some books from you guys and just like some advice about all that, because I'm definitely nervous about going into just him getting older and his questions and everything. I would just love some support on all that. What do you guys think the best way to go about all that is?
And Jake, you kind of started to talk about that. Do you want to add anything?
Oh, I love this subject. The person who coached us when we were going through this, she spent time with Savanah, she spent time with counselor, spent time with Chris and I, and then all 3 of us together. And one of the things that she said is start telling them the story of themselves from the day that you bring them home or before. And so that's what we did. And I created this little story that Avalon could tell you on her own. It's called and I'm actually in the process of writing a book myself, a kid's book about the magical, mystical, missing puzzle piece. And we asked so-and-so, and we asked, this is the Cole's notes. And we asked, and went through the whole line of everyone, and everyone's, nope, I don't have that piece that, it's going to take to bring this magical child to the planet. And then we called Savanah, and we asked Savanah, and Savanah said, yes. And so that's the premise of the book. But that is how Avalon learned her own story, and that's how she tells it.
That's cute.
Yeah.
What about telling your family? How was that?
Telling the family. Yeah, we knew right out of the gate that there's no secrets. I can't keep a secret. And so we all decided that everyone in the family would know. And then as far as friends are concerned, they were just so shocked that I was pregnant after everything in my life. And, being the woman with the little dog living in the high rise, that was so shocking that, how didn't come into play until later. It's like, oh, what? So yeah, but we have definitely, I loved our story so much, and I love so much that Savanah is a part of it, that I love telling that part of it too. So there's no one who knows us in our story who does not know that she was a part of the triangle that made this happen.
I love that. Our next question is, how are your kids like you despite having your genetics? Tara, you want to start with that one again?
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, he's definitely dramatic, so I can see that from me for sure. But he's also two, so I think that comes with the territory. Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to tell yet because he's only two, right? Like he has, I mean, you've really started to see his personality a lot more. He's a big talker, which I'm a big talker. He likes to tell like a little story, and he's very, he's a happy boy. He's a little crazy. So I blame that on my husband, mostly the crazy part. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't have like certain mannerisms, I don't think yet, that are exactly like me. But I mean, he definitely looks like me for sure. People, it's funny. They're like, wait, he's not genetically yours. And I was like, no, not at all. My genetics are not in there. So that's kind of funny how that's all played out, because if you put us next to each other, like we look pretty similar. It could be the blonde hair, I don't know, but even our eyes and our nose and everything look pretty similar. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just too like your children, we talk a lot about nature versus nurture in our family. And I really truly believe like it doesn't matter where your child came from. If you nurture them the proper way, they're going to end up, they look up to you. They do what you do. They act like you. And it's funny because we're already starting to see some signs of how Sailor was at that age, and she's 100% genetically us, right? And he's not. So like the early speech, and he really loves books, and I'm like, maybe it's just because we're raising him the same way we raised Sailor, right? Like it probably has nothing to do with genetics, potentially. And this is one of the questions we had the opportunity to meet with a geneticist in this process as well. And my husband's really tall. So one of his silly questions was, is my kid going to come out to be like, -5 foot tall, because the donor was only 5 foot tall. And I am not that tall, but I'm 5'5". I'm just average. But, he's 6'3" and a few inches, a few pennies. And he was like, well, it's totally fine. I don't care if he's not as tall as me, but we're all tall in my family, and I don't want him to feel bad about that. So, it was just this really silly like conversation, but the geneticist, it was just fascinating how, we had this whole thing about nature versus nurture, not with the height, but just, that was one thing that there is really like a math equation on that, but you can't predict it. It could be 5 inches either way, right? Like you just don't know. But she was like, I do see that like some kids are innately born with like certain things, certain characteristics about themselves. But at the end of the day, like if you are raising that child the same way and you're nurturing them and you're teaching them things, there's a good chance they're going to just be like their older sibling, right? So it's been interesting to kind of see how that's played out so far.
Yeah. Janice, what about you? Do you see yourself in Remy yet?
Yeah, I do. I actually have, I'm just going to grab it real quick, this picture of me when I was a baby. This is so funny because I feel like I look at this and I'm just like, he looks like this, kind of like he's got the face. It's really interesting. And sometimes I even feel like he's not like a donor conceived, because I feel like I'll forget and I'll be like, oh my gosh, there's no difference in having him. Once I gave birth to this child and they put him on me and I breastfed him, I just like, he's mine. He fits right in. People will say like, we've been at, doctor's appointments, or I'll post pictures or whatever. And people are like, yeah, he looks just like your other boys. And they have no idea, He actually looks so much like one of my last boy. And he looks so much like him as a baby. So physically, there's definitely things that look different, but he just really resembles my boys. And then, yeah, he just feels just doesn't feel any different. It doesn't feel any different. Sometimes I'll remember and I'll kind of look and I'll be like, I think maybe his eyes look like the donor's eyes a little bit from that picture I'm remembering or something. I don't know just yet because he's only 5 months old.
Right.
So
Yeah.
every day is like, it's so cool. Every day is like Christmas. When you wake up and you look at them, you're like, how did they grow? What's different? What's going to happen today? It's like a present every day.
Yeah.
So we're still in that phase. Yeah.
Jake, what about you?
Avalon, my husband and I are both singers, and she's incredibly musical. This child is singing all day long. I definitely see mannerisms, and now that she is not just talking, but growing into her personality. But through this process, I have become a certified parent coach, because at one point it was like, what am I doing? So I took it for survival. And then learning all about epigenetics and learning about, the first years of your life where the child's brain is wired through, being through connection and attachment and all of that. But I definitely see an equal part. Like there's definitely parts of her personality that are showing up as she is my daughter. She is her father's daughter. And then there are moments where Chris and I will look at each other and go, Savanah. Because, she's out on the field. Savanah is incredibly athletic. Christopher, I not so much, but we'll watch her do something and go, oh my gosh. And it's like, it happens so much, Smoogs. Like, honestly, during the day, it's like, we'll look at each other and there's just this knowing. It's like, Savanah, definitely Savanah.
As long as they continue to be positive things, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Everything bad, not me.
Not you. No.
But those are the benefits of having a donor. You can blame all the bad stuff on the donor.
Right?
We do it all the time. I'm like, oh, he just threw something on the floor. He slapped you. Yeah, that's
Donor.
the donor. It's not. Or I'm like, it's obviously your genetics. It's the BRCA genetic.
I love that so much.
And just wait till your boy gets older. You can just start blaming it on the donor. 100%.
Were there any hard parts to using a donor? I'm kind of opening that up to anyone. Were there hard or easy parts to using donor eggs compared to using your own?
I mean, I think I'll say just during pregnancy, like I went through that kind of really hard first trimester to where I was really just kind of questioning and got kind of anxious and was worried and just like, oh gosh, what did we do? Like, is this okay? Like, how's this going to really be? How's this going to pan out? And then as soon as I got pregnant, started really worrying like the physical part, like, is my body going to reject the embryo? I had an unsuccessful donor egg transfer the first time. And so I thought, maybe my body's this isn't really going to work. Maybe the embryos that we have my body's not going to be receptive to that because it's not my genetic material. And so, yeah. And then just worried about the bonding, worried about like, when I actually give birth to this baby, are we going to connect in the same way? Is it going to be the same? So,
Jake, what about you?
That I can totally empathize with that. But in my case, those were not my concerns. I was more concerned, like Avalon was transfer number 6.
Yeah.
And Savanah was like the first person that I would call when we would get the results. And, I was more concerned with like, how is she feeling about the fact that these aren't taken? But Savanah, every single time it's like you said, but next one, it's going to work. She was also an incredible cheering section. So, but concerns, I think because it was my family and I knew the background, because there was DNA involved, my mind didn't go anywhere, but this is the route we're going. This is our family. And my knowing about those things, I think kind of warded off any feelings of concern during the process of what have I done. I was very clear on that. And I couldn't have been happier with the choice that we made during that time.
Mm-hmm. Tara, you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more just, that grieving process a little bit, right? Like, losing your genetic tie. But I think I had a long time to really think about it. And like, we were lucky we were able to have one genetic child first, right? So I think I did grieve and I was sad, but I think, at the end of the day, we wanted to have another child and complete our family. So it was more about let's try and be positive and go forward with this process. I didn't worry as about the bonding or anything. I actually had an easier time bonding with Jensen than I did with Sailor. And I think it was just because I was just a disaster. I was so anxious. I was a mess. Like, I was like, is this kid breathing? Where's the button for the nurse? Like, why didn't the nurse come home with us? Like, what is happening right now? I mean, we were clueless. And I am just like, my anxiety was on like full force. So I think I was just always like worried. But with Jensen, it was just different because I knew what I was doing. And we had waited so long to have him. There were 4 years in between them. So yeah, it wasn't as worrisome about that process. So I guess that was good for me and my craziness.
I think a lot of these questions stem from my own fears and bonding. And even right now, I don't feel really bonded to the baby yet. And I assume that's because I haven't really started feeling him yet. Maybe. I did have one question. One woman said, well, you don't know what your baby's going to look like. And I said, well, the baby wouldn't even know.
Nobody does. Nobody knows.
Who does? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Even if we use our own eggs, who knows what the baby looks like? So I think a lot of all these fears can be interchangeable from your own eggs or donor eggs.
I was just like, please let her look like Savanah. Please let her look like Savanah.
I have 5 other children and none of them are my mini me's. None of them do you look at and say, those are like, that is definitely you. Like, so they all look more like their dad. Every single one of them. They're kind of a mix like of our family members. So that was kind of definitely a sign that like genetics can do anything because they're like just little pieces from all different people,
Yeah, I mean, I was convinced
definitely don't have a mini me.
Yeah, I was convinced that Jensen was going to come out as a clone of my husband, and there is no cloning at all. I mean, he doesn't look anything like him. And Sailor's our faces are exactly the same. And if you put my mom in the picture, my daughter and I, it's like the 3 of us are triplets. I mean, there is no question that we're all related. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, you just never know, right? Like, you have no idea what they're going to come out looking like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, Janice, I think you mentioned what bonding was like after birth. Jake, what was bonding for you like afterwards?
As soon as I laid eyes on that little thing, I could not believe she was here. I don't know what it's like to have a child who is biologically mine, but she just was like, this is my baby. So yeah, there was no oddness. But again, I keep going back to this in this conversation that anything that didn't, feel like mine felt like Savanah's. And I love her so much that that was almost endearing to see things that were like, oh, look, that's like her, so it's a very strange, when it works, it works.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, just true love.
Tara, was it true love for you also?
Yeah, same. I mean, I had a little bit of a traumatic birth experience.
You did.
So we didn't get the hugging it out type of situation. They took him right away. He had the cord wrapped a little bit and they had to give him a little bit of oxygen. He was fine. And then I was having trouble with the placenta. They couldn't get it out. And then it turned into, they left me in the room. They were like, you're good. It's all out. And I rolled over and I hemorrhaged 2 liters of blood and I almost died. And they had to take me into emergency surgery. So I didn't really get the time that I thought I was going to get bonding. I didn't actually see it. So this happened at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't see Jensen and hold him until like 9 or 10 o'clock that night. So, but I did not have trouble bonding with him. It was just like, I went through a lot of craziness for like 8 hours, leading up to seeing him. So, and I did not have Sailor laid on me for a while when I had her. And I just think she actually pooped on me, which was disgusting. But it happens. But I was like, oh no, this is gross. But no, I mean, it was just once I was better and they saved my life and got me all fixed up. It was great. We bonded right away. And I was so glad that I wasn't as I was still nervous, don't get me wrong, but I could tell already that I was like way better than I was with when Sailor was born, just because I had done it before, right? I kind of I knew what to expect a little bit more.
Savanah, what is your bond like with Avalon?
Oh, it's fantastic. We're like two little peas in a pod. I think our motto actually might be can't be besties if you're not samesies.
Yes.
Yeah,
say
she's
it
the
together.
best. Yeah. There's no weirdness. There's nothing. We're just two cousins.
How often do you come down and see them?
At least once a year for like an extended period of time. We've actually, I mean, through my dad being sick, which is a curse and a blessing, silver, like lining through that experience, I was down there probably every other month for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So we've actually got a lot of time in the past 3-4 years together.
Terry, you mentioned how you taught your child about the conception. And I think, Jake, you did also.
Yeah, I can jump in if you want. I think it was, I feel like I was in your boat at like when he was like the 5 month, 6 month, I was like, is he listening to me? He just wants to eat. Like, this is like a waste of my time. Should I have this conversation? But, I kind of like started out with like, it was like, it's definitely progressed into a much bigger story. So in the beginning, so right away we had his embryo picture painted by an artist, and we put it over his changing table. So it's been there since day one, basically. And so that's kind of where I started, or my husband and I started with the story. Like, that's your embryo, right? And then we've kind of worked our way up now that he's 2, and he really does, like, he can kind of repeat some of the story now, but we've worked our way up to more complicated, like, story time, right? I guess is what I call it. But in the beginning, it was just like, yep, that was your embryo. You were in mommy's belly and we had a helper, right? Like, this was like literally like 3 words, right? And then as he got older, like, I think there was a long period of just like, you're kind of stressed out, newborn stage. I don't really feel like I talked about it as much, but when I was rocking him to sleep, I would just be like, oh, we're so lucky that, this woman was able to help us. And it was just like little tidbits here and there. But then once he was like 1.5 or like a little bit older and starting to be able to like communicate back to us, I have a really awesome book that is called The Egg Donation Story or something like that. I'm happy to send it all to you guys, but it explains it in a very simple way. Like, and the only thing that's missing is Sailor's not in the book, but we can't make a book for every family. So, but we needed help, went to the doctor, and it's an Australian author. And the funny part is I heard her story on a podcast, and that her son is named Jensen, and that's how we came up with Jensen's name. It's just super random because Jensen's not a common name in America, I don't think, but it is more common, outside of America. So I listened to her podcast and she wrote this book, and I was like, this is an awesome book. So it talks about, there was, and I'm not a religious or spiritual person, but it talks about there was an angel lady, call her the angel lady. She gave us an egg. We were able to use her egg, put it with daddy's seeds, and make an embryo, put it in mommy's tummy. So he knows that now. Like, there's an angel lady. He's like, can I read the eggy book? So he asks for it all the time, and it has like, when you open it, like just a bunch of eggs drawn like on the inside cover. So he knows for sure, like, this is my book. And yeah, he's like, and then he'll point to he'll be like, embryo, mommy's belly, and out came Jensen. Like, I mean, he can repeat it back. So I think it's like working your way toward, and I'm sure Jake has a much more complicated story now, or that your daughter's older, right? But I think you just kind of have to like age appropriate your story, I think, is how it's worked pretty well for us. And then I was more scared to tell Sailor. So that was the bigger, because she at the time was 4. And I was like sweating. I was panicking. I was like, what is she going to say? Is she going to like throw the book at me? That's originally why we bought the book. So we talked to her and she was like, oh, that's cool. I mean, literally, it was like no big deal to her, which I should have known better, but you're just nervous, right? So she is very aware of the story and she can repeat it. Obviously, she's 6 now. She can have a full conversation about it. But I mean, she even knows what a uterus is. I mean, she's pretty smart. So I think just like, the other thing we've done is not as much Jensen's teachers, because they haven't really done anything yet, but like Sailor's teachers know that Jensen is from a donor for like family, like they do family trees, and like they start to have like more in-depth conversations about science and things of that nature when they get older. So I have been open with some of the teachers as well that Sailor has. And I think I did tell one of Jensen's teachers, they were doing like family portraits or something one day. So but, I think just having those, working your way up to bigger conversations is how I feel like that's the best advice I could give someone. There's a million books out there, but I really like this one because it's simple and it's repeatable. especially, and I have more complicated books for when he's older that I found, but I read through them first and was like, oh, this is a little bit too much, like too many words, too much information. Like, let's just keep it simple at first. So I don't know. That's kind of, and it's worked really well. I have no idea what he thinks about it because that's all he knows. And hopefully that's just the way it'll always be, right? But I'm sure, Jake, you have a much more.
Well, I just loved being able to practice when she was teeny tiny. And it was always very once upon a time because I love that kind of Disney vibe. So, and I tried different things and the magical, mystical missing puzzle piece just felt right. And so I just kept developing that until she was starting to, I would stop and she would, we asked Mimi and Mimi said, and she'd go, no, I don't have it. And Avalon would kind of start inserting parts of the story. So now that we're here and she really does understand anatomy and where babies come from, which conversation I didn't think I'd be having with her, but things have come up and she asks the questions and can I see it on YouTube? And she's like a little Oprah, always asking questions.
This is what I'm scared of, Jake. This is for Sailor. I'm already on that path.
Yeah, it's not. I'm glad, actually. I'm glad. If she's ready to hear it.
We didn't know that stuff. That's for sure.
Oh
I
my
didn't
God,
know any of that.
No. But the story she loves and she feels special because of the story. Most kids, she's like, it takes two pieces to the puzzle. But for me, I needed that extra sparkle. And, and of course, her connection to Savanah, she gets to say to her, I think at one point she was like, thanks for helping to make me, it's just, that's part of our dialogue is that somebody had that magical piece that was required for your fabulousness to be here. So, but I think, the fun part is actually just playing around with stories that make sense to you. And, whether it's a once upon a timer or, there was this little girl, but she didn't come here. Just making a fun little story that has your family members in it. And then I should hurry up and make mine so that you could just have it.
Yeah. I love thinking that these group of donor children are more educated on biological making more than other kids.
100%. I mean, I think my mom gave me a book when I was like 12 and like, read this. I mean, I probably knew more than most people though, I knew I was going to have trouble having children my whole life because my mom and her grandma went through menopause in her early 40s. So I feel like privileged to have known that information. There was nothing I could do about it because the technology wasn't there until I was in my 30s, right? When I froze my eggs and they didn't work anyways, but it was at least an option for me. But I don't think a lot of people even know their family history, never mind their anatomy and fertility. And
yeah,
you try for 100 years to not get pregnant. And then when you really want to get pregnant, you can't get pregnant. So
yes.
we want to teach our kids the right things, but I also think, like you said, Jake, they need to know these things, right? It's better to be informed than uninformed.
It's hard to start telling the story about the egg donation without just going all in.
We use I guess I was just I don't want my kid to go to school and be like, hey, my daddy's sperm. I mean, it would have been fine, but we use seed. I was like, let's use seeds. It would have been fine, but who knows, right?
Well,
people get offended easily.
She's still saying, you're absolutely correct. And she's still saying puzzle piece. So we're going to go with that as long as we can.
Our next question is from Instagram. She said pros and cons of telling the child if the egg is from a country where donors are anonymous.
Yeah, I think it's such a personal thing. I mean, yes, for me, there was no question. But that's a personal one.
Yeah, it is.
I think that the child just has the right to know.
Any unforeseen challenges now that your child is older? Jake, do you see anything?
I do not. No.
That's great. Tara?
I think I alluded to this on my podcast a little bit, Jamie, but we have met one of the donor siblings. I wouldn't exactly say it was a challenge, but it gets a little more complicated. And, I think we initially put Jensen on the donor sibling registry, which is the registry that Wendy Kramer started 20 years ago or however long ago it was. And I think they've matched over 80,000 people or some crazy amount, but I did that because we wanted, if there was a donor sibling out there, we wanted Jensen to be able to find that person and have a relationship if he wanted to, right? I think I probably went into it a little bit naively, thinking it was just going to be like roses and happy and we're going to be besties. But like, that's just not how it was. And there's nothing wrong with it. I just think people are very different, right? You're not always, you can't force a relationship. And I think I want Jensen to have the option to have relationships with these donor siblings out there, but I think he's almost too young to like obviously formulate an opinion and judgment and like have that really, I think it's just complicated. I don't think I'm articulating this very well, but I think it's just a challenge to like, do you want to connect to all of them? Do you want to connect to some of them? Is one going to pop up in 5 years? Like they might, right? Like, I mean, donor eggs can be frozen infinitely, right? Like there's probably a lot of her donor eggs still on ice at the fertility clinic that we went to. So, I mean, one could pop up in 10 years. So I think it's just like, that's a little bit of a challenge because you're not just meeting the donor sibling, you're meeting the family too, right? And like, connecting with them and like, do you want to have a close relationship? Do you just want to know them and like know that they're out there? There's just a lot of things to think about, right? So it's not necessarily like a challenge. It's just complicated, I would say.
Yeah. Now you said there is 2 other donor siblings.
Yeah, there's 2. There's one. So yeah, there's one person used this other donor and then they donated their last embryo to another family. So that makes it even more complicated, right? So it's this family they have 2 biological, one and a third. They use this donor. So they have a child who's, I think, around 1 that used this donor. And then they had 1 embryo left that they wanted to donate. So they donated it to another family. That family just had the baby in July. We haven't talked to them or met them yet. They live kind of far from us. So live in another state. But that family has the DNA of the dad from the family that used the donor and the donor. So it's even more, like almost like 7 degrees of separation, right? So it just keeps like the complications of like the DNA, right? Keeps going and going and going, right? So, which is fine. It's just fascinating, right? Like, because embryo donation wasn't a thing like 10 years ago, I don't think, right? Like, I mean, this is kind of a newer thing that people are doing. So, but yeah, that's that. As far as we know, we haven't matched with anyone else on the database, but like I said, this donor, I think when we used her, that had been her 4th time donating. So people either haven't like obviously chosen not to put themselves on the registry or, they're just living their life and they don't want to be found right now, which is fine. Right? It's up to them. But we will be able to have all of the information about our donor at 18.
And we don't know anything. We don't know any of that at all. He came from a donated 6 lot, but we're not sure if there were other eggs or if those were the only eggs. I think that there probably were other eggs because usually that's how they were getting done at our clinic, where they would split them up, because she originally came from one of the agencies that you could go on there and pick, and decide for them to do a retrieval for you, and you pay for them to travel and all of that. So she was originally on that database. She wasn't just a local person that donated. So I believe someone probably used the other, and those were just the ones that were donated to our clinic after people were successful or not. But we have no idea of the origins of anything. So that's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't think we're really going to worry about it right now. We're just going to be open, and we don't have any of that information. So, as he gets older, if he wants to pursue that, then we'll help him pursue it. But I don't think we're going to worry about it too much right now.
Now, have y'all discussed about putting him on a sibling? What is it called, Tara?
It's called the donor sibling registry, but you need to have, all you need is your donor ID number, which you probably have from your clinic. And then if there are other families that use that donor, they match you anonymously. And then you can choose to chat over the database, or, I had exchanged emails eventually with the other family, but it's not a lot of people know about it. We found out it through our fertility clinic. I mean, even though there's a lot of people on it, it's not like, not everyone in the world knows about it. So, but yeah, it was pretty cool. It was nice that we had that option.
Yeah.
And I think you have to pay like a small fee for So,
I have heard about it. I heard about it during pregnancy, and we have it in our, it's
yeah.
there. We might do that. Probably we'll do that in the future, but right now, been so caught up in just having a baby for the first time in 17 years.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot
So,
about it. I
and I
did
would
it.
just say, I
Yeah.
just wanted to kind of piggyback on what you were talking about having, when you had Jensen, he was your second. So you kind of felt like you knew what you're doing already and you weren't near as nervous. Remy was kind of the other way around because I had kids so long ago. 17 years ago was my last pregnancy. So he felt like how it felt with my very first. Like we felt like, even though we were older, like we should know what we were doing, but we can't remember. We just can't remember. So it's been like a whole new learning curve for us. And things will come up and we'll be like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Once we got into it, we're like, yeah, this is how this goes. Yeah, we got
It's
it.
like riding a bike, kind of,
Yeah,
but not
yes.
really.
Exactly.
What advice would you give someone else considering donor egg conception? Jake, you want to start with that one?
Sure. I mean, I think any way you slice it, and I can speak from being really close-fisted in the beginning. Yes, we ended up going with my niece, and I had my desire fulfilled of having DNA. But I know carrying this child and having the end result and having the family, that it is one of the most amazing magical gifts that there is on this planet, to create a family. And it's real and it's bonded and it's beautiful. And I could not say enough. If anyone is even remotely considering it, I say 100% it's a beautiful way to go down this path.
Janice, what about you?
I would say that you should research epigenetics if you've never heard about it and how cool it is. Families are made in all kinds of different ways, and this is a really cool adventure to embark on when you start looking into it and you start hearing other people's stories. And the child will be yours. Once you give birth to that baby and you start taking care of that baby, there's not going to be a question of, is this really my child? It won't happen.
Tara, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think too, I agree with what everyone else said. And I think to add one more thing is find your community.
Mm.
My husband and I joined a support group that was put on by CCRM. We met once a month over Zoom at the time because of COVID. But really, honestly, that was the best thing we could have done. I literally just had lunch with two friends that I met from the group yesterday, and they both have donor conceived babies. One had a biological first and one didn't. And they're both 50 or 51, so a little bit older than I am. And it's just so nice to have people that are in the same boat as you. And everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different reason that led them to use donor eggs. So it's fascinating, number one. And then, it was just nice. Like we were all in different parts of our journey. Like some people were just purchasing their eggs and other people were already pregnant. And so, you kind of did like a round table. You got to go around and talk about where you were and talk about your fears, ask for advice, things of that nature. And it's funny, like I still, once you have your child, you're kind of kicked out of the group, which I get that. But like at first, Mitch and I were like, we can't talk to you guys anymore. Like, so we have like a WhatsApp like group that some of us are still connected in, which is nice. But they still do it every once a month, every Saturday or on Saturdays, and it's been great. And I just connect with others. And I think like you'll find that so many people have so many different ways of building their families. Might not be exactly the same as yours, but you'll find your people is kind of what I've learned. Like we've lost some friends, we've gained a bunch of friends, like, you find your people. And I think that's the most important thing too. Like this is a hard road. It's not easy. And you want it to have positive around you, not negative. So
I think it's going to be hard whether you use your own eggs or you use donor eggs. It's just a different kind of hard.
right, totally.
What would you say to the woman who says she is struggling to conceive but can't afford donor eggs? Janice, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I would say look into frozen eggs. They're generally less expensive and a lot less expensive than using your own eggs because you skip that retrieval process. Well, I will say eggs that are already donated, because we didn't go the route, we didn't end up going the route where you pick a donor and they do the retrieval and all of that. And I don't know how your experiences were, but we were going to have to cover that cost of the travel. And I'm still not quite sure about their actual procedure, but it was definitely going to be a lot more money. So we didn't originally plan to use the frozen eggs in the way that we did, but we ended up saving a lot of money.
Yeah.
For sure. So look into that. There's very creative ways to go about it too. And there's some clinics have different programs that offer really great payment plans and like stipends and things like that. So could look into that. And also, yeah, if the clinic already has a bank like ours did, that, they have lots coming in periodically, and you can check on those, and, they've already been donated. So yeah, it ended up being a lot cheaper than what we were originally going to do. And so that was a bonus.
Jake, what about you?
Yes, to everything that Janice just said. There are payment plan situations, just like anything else that we invest in these days. But also, consider the people that Like I know a lot of people are too, really afraid to even consider or ask. And it's surprising how, like from Savanah, I know that you said this several times. It felt like an honor to be able to be a part of that. You never know who you ask, if they might have that same feeling of wanting to help in that way. So it's, not being afraid to have a conversation if you know someone who might fit the bill.
Mm-hmm. Tara, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said. And I think one additional thing would be there are a lot of grants out there.
Mm-hmm.
So look into that. There's a lot of nonprofits and organizations that are trying to help women with, it could be anything, IVF, donor eggs, sperm donation, whatever it may be. So try and look into that. Be creative. We had to be very creative to figure out how to pay for this. So taking money where you might not want to take it from, right? But knowing that like in 10 years, are you going to regret not doing this just because of money, right? So, you're not like, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this 10 years from now, right? I would be too old, too tired. And, who knows what our financial situation would have been then. So I think, that was a huge factor for us, was the financial part of it. So just try and be creative. And, some people have the luxury of asking their family for help and being able to pay them back. I think that's another option I've heard of. But I've seen a lot more organizations trying to help out, even if it's $5,000, which I know doesn't sound like a huge help in the scheme of things, but it's something, right? Like, and if you can get a grant from someone or from an organization, that's pretty awesome. So,
Jake, what do you wish you knew before using donor eggs?
Wow. I honestly, I can't think of anything. I felt incredibly informed once we decided to go down that path.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel covered on that one.
Yeah, I would say all of your fears or everything that you're going to go through is probably the same whether you use your eggs or not. That's how I would say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tara, what about you?
Yeah, I think just, try and have, I guess, for me, it was that like my husband and I didn't think we were on the same page. So communicate with your partner, right? Like, and not that we weren't, it's just like we needed that intervention of someone like talking with us and helping us get to the same point. Mm-hmm. So that would have been helpful to know ahead of time. But I also think like just knowing that like everything's going to be okay on the other side of it. So all the fears I've had like have actually just been, they've been okay. Like I had, yes, there's still the fear of like 10 years from now, like what my child's going to think, but I can't sit here and focus on that. He's a great, happy boy. He completed our family. Like just try and like just take a step back and enjoy the moments, right? And not worry as much about what's going to happen. And I know you're probably in the throes of that right now, Jamie, of like, how's this going to feel and how am I going to feel and all of that. But it's, take a step back and just try and enjoy every minute of it, because I know for me, it was going to be my last pregnancy and I wasn't going to do this again. So, I tried to enjoy every step of the way on that front.
Janice, what about you? What do you wish you knew before using donor eggs?
More about the open donation and about how important that was, because we honestly didn't learn as much about that until after I was already pregnant. It didn't really matter to us that our donor did a closed donation when we chose it. We just really didn't know what all that entailed, and so I think that's really important. So that's what we wish we would have known. So, because, our journey ahead, we're not sure what that's going to look like because there's just so much that we don't know.
Our next question is for Savanah. We haven't heard much from you, Savanah. What do you wish you knew before becoming an egg donor?
I think, like my aunt said, like we were so well informed about everything from the get-go. And I don't think there's really anything particularly that I wish that I knew. In terms of the process, I am a relatively fearless person, and what I was doing, I was just fully supportive of. If anything, maybe how big my boobs are going to get. I don't know. That would have been helpful. But I'm honestly, like, in all seriousness, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I wish I would have known. Like, we were, yeah, very, very well informed, and we kind of knew every step that we were about to take. And we were very fortunate in that sense.
What should I have asked about using donor eggs? Tara, you want to start off with that one?
Sure. I think just the importance of just being well informed about every aspect of it, right? I mean, I can't think of anything in particular that we should have asked, but I think it's just knowing about, like Janice said, like knowing about like open ID and, that kind of stuff, knowing about, how I think one of the things, like I remember like texting with one of the women in the support group, well, how many eggs do you buy? How many eggs do you think it's going to take? Like, it's not that the clinic doesn't want to help you with that, but like they're just they're making money, right? So like,
Yes.
how many do you really need if you just want one more child? Like, so I like literally remember like the day that we were putting the deposit down, like, they come in lots of 8. Do we need to buy extra? Like, and I'm so glad I did because we ended up with like 3 embryos at the end of the day that were normal, but we bought 11 eggs. After fertilization, we got down to like 8 or 9. I mean, it's such a numbers game. So like, I didn't know. I had done enough research on IVF in general, but like I think you think with donor eggs, like they're all going to fertilize, they're all going to be perfect embryos, they're all going to be great, and that does not happen whatsoever.
No.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're 23 or 43. Like not everyone's eggs are like not every egg that comes out of someone are going to be perfect. Yes, you have a better chance with a younger donor, of course. Their eggs are healthier, and they're better quality most of the time, but it doesn't mean they're not going to have a few bad ones in there. So I wish I knew a little bit more about that part of the process and just like how much does all this cost? Like the financial aspect. I mean, that was the most confusing part. Like, especially with like a huge fertility clinic, you have like one guy in a shoebox, like in, wherever, like trying to explain to you on the phone, like, well, this lab's out of network and this lab's in network. And if you don't like understand insurance and how all of that works, it's so overwhelming. I mean, I remember sitting on the phone for hours with these people, just like, no, like, give me the number at the end. Like, I just need to know how much I'm spending. And like, I'd get a bill for one thing and a bill for another. And I just like, it was so confusing. So, I mean, honestly, like, I think there's women out there now that are almost like an IVF concierge, like that handle, like walk you through all this and like handle a lot of this for you. And I'm sure like, obviously it costs money to hire someone like that, but like brilliant idea because you're stressed enough with having to use donor eggs. Then to add that on top of it is just like, you feel like your brain's just going to like, explode some days. So
Yes.
I wish I knew more about that process for sure.
Yeah. When we first started talking about this, my husband said, "Oh my gosh, we're going to have 6 embryos." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no, that's not how it works."
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got
'Cause you think they're all going to
2.
be good, but they're not, right? Like some
Right.
don't think it.
Yeah. Some didn't even fertilize. So I think that's what I might do different if I could go back in time. I think we would get more eggs and I would probably choose a known donor because our donor was a first time donor. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I do like the security of a known donor or a proven donor.
We learned through the process, like, once you buy the 8, if there's an uneven lot, at least in our clinic, so we were able to buy 3 more that like didn't fit into a perfect 8 box of 8. So that was great which is so funny. Like you're buying
donuts
at like the grocery store. Yeah. But it's funny to talk about. When I just said that, it sounded really weird, but yeah, no, I mean, I think that's something too. You're like, well, do I really need and like each extra egg was like $1,000. And I'm like, we're already spending like so much money. What's another 3,000? I mean, honestly, that was our like, what's another $3,000? And I'm glad we did because with 11 eggs, we only ended up with 3 like chromosomally normal embryos, right? And so, but I mean, you just don't know. We could have ended up with 11 normal embryos. Like you just don't know.
Jake, what about you? What should we be discussing about donor eggs that we haven't?
everything feels so covered. The one element of discussion that was really, I think, paramount in our experience was the mindset part. Yes, there's all this medical stuff and but we are playing a numbers and a science game. And so for us, the mindset, the part of mantras and believing, and, that was everything in our story. So I would encourage adding, a sprinkle of that in there as well.
Yeah, definitely. You talked a lot about that on your show. And just to go through to get to number 6, to have your baby, I mean, you probably had to do a lot of mindset work just to keep moving forward every day. Yeah.
And, Tara, you mentioned earlier, we spend a lot of our lives, trying not to get pregnant. I remember being on the road with the band that I traveled with, and we'd be, at an early morning Denny's after a late night, and they'd say, "How do you want your eggs?" And I'd say, "Unfertilized," for years. And then to turn that around and try and convince my body that, hey, instead of going, off into the sense of menopause, let's have a baby. So I think our minds and accepting, like, say, this is what, once you make that decision, being on board with yourself and saying, this is the beauty of the way my family's coming about, and going forward with that mindset, I think is really helpful.
Janice, what would you like to add? What should we be talking about?
Wow, I just want to say that was really beautiful. I loved hearing that. That was really beautiful. I feel like we've been really thorough. I mean, in answering that question, thought that, you're just asking again to you what's really important that you didn't know about. And to me, the open donation piece. And then Tara talking about the support, and just for me thinking about the support piece, we really didn't have that. We didn't really have a lot of our questions answered. And we definitely didn't have like support of a community. I didn't really know anybody else that was doing that. Honestly, that's how I found your show. And I didn't know anything about donor eggs when I first started listening to your show, but I would just look for podcasts. I would just search over 40 podcasts and just whatever I could find to listen to. And I started listening to you as I was going through right before I had my second transfer that was Remy. So just looking for that support and just craving it. Just making sure that you have it. I'm pretty much listening to this show was a huge support piece for me. I did have an online community through Amy Raup. A lot of those women are not using donor eggs. So it was just a few, that was kind of a latter part of hearing people, finally becoming accepting of using donor eggs. So yeah, the support piece is really, really crucial. And I would really recommend people having support going through it, like reaching out in whatever way and just diving into community, which I wish we would do a little more of.
Savanah, this last question is for you. What do you wish people would ask you about being an egg donor?
I think just how fulfilling it is. I think people skip that a lot, maybe just from lack of knowledge around the topic. But I feel like people more or less gravitate to, maybe the more negative, for lack of better words, questions like, is it weird? Or like, how strange is it? Is it weird for you to do this? And I think that it's just such a beautiful thing. I would like people to ask the more positive questions about how great it was, and, what it was like to give this to, my aunt and my uncle, and, just questions like that, I think, more or less.
Yeah, I think people really project their fears on when they ask other questions, and it just comes out terrible.
Yeah. Well, and again, like, I think that comes from like a lack of knowledge in the topic, and that's okay, but it is such a beautiful thing that I wish it would come off in a more positive light and more intriguing questions rather than the awkward.
Yeah.
The awkward questions.
Yeah. I love y'all's story.
Great. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
It's not weird. And I mean, maybe that's to each their own. It's just, maybe it wasn't weird for me. I think it's so fabulous and awesome and great, and all the good things. Yeah.
Well, that is all of my questions. Do y'all have anything to add before we wrap up?
Thank you for putting this together, Jamie. This is awesome, and so nice to meet other women here that are, doing things that are amazing as well. And I'm really grateful for it. Sorry, Janice, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, Janice, would you like to start off by giving us your Instagram and social accounts?
Sure. Yep. So it's JA_nice5, and that's my Instagram. And then I'm just Janice McCravey, Facebook, and I don't really have any like donor, egg, or mama accounts. It's just my personal. But I would love for y'all to follow me and me to follow you and us to keep in touch.
Love it. Jake, what about you?
You can find me at themostlypeacefulparent.com. That's my website. I'm on Instagram at themostlypeacefulparent.
And I am at Tara Carbo1, TaraCarbo1. I am private, but please feel free to send a request and I'd be happy to chat with you about anything.
Savanah?
I assure you, there's nothing interesting on it. You're more than welcome to follow. Being_savvy. So BEING_SAVVY.
Awesome. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us on this show. It was amazing.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next Monday.
There she is.
On cue.
On cue.
Hi, Schmavelon.
She can't hear you. She said, hi,
Oh.
Schmavelon.
Hi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, fantastic.